As I said during our last trade hearing, Republicans on this committee need to speak up and work with us to support Congress's authority on trade and taxes. Right now, President Trump is attempting to impose the largest tax increase in over 30 years on the American people through various tariff hikes, which consumers ultimately pay for without a vote in Congress. In fact, Republicans snuck a hidden provision into the vote schedule 2 weeks ago that effectively surrendered Congress's role in setting taxes and tariffs on the American people to Trump. And this made it so House Republicans didn't have to vote directly on whether to keep Trump's tariffs on Canada and Mexico in place. And he was only able to impose these tariffs by trying to declare national emergencies, including against Canada for its role in the fentanyl crisis, even though we know that fentanyl from our northern border accounts for only 0.2% of total seizures by the Border Patrol. And this also happened the same day that Trump levied huge new tariffs on steel and aluminum on countries, including our closest allies like Canada, which are already driving up the costs of building cars, planes, and new homes. And let's talk a little bit more about Canada for a second. I have a question for any of my Republican colleagues, some of who I've worked with closely over the past decade. Do you think it's okay that Trump and some of your colleagues disrespect and belittle Canadians by calling their leader a governor and referring to their country as the 51st state? Do you think it's a joke? My constituents in Washington certainly don't think it's funny. And right now, Trump is turning our allies into enemies. Canadians are boycotting American products at grocery stores and retail stores, and according to the latest federal figures, 500,000 fewer Canadians crossed the land border into the United States in February compared to last year. In fact, that's the lowest it's been since COVID-era testing and quarantine rules were in place. And many Canadians don't want to fly here either. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to enter into the record an article published in The Hill, which highlights that Canadian airlines are canceling flights to Tennessee and reducing flights to Arizona, Florida, and Las Vegas. This is already having a big negative impact on Canadian tourism, which generates over $20 billion and supports over 100,000 jobs across the United States. And what's the goal? Trump's tariffs plan are full of holes. He says they're a negotiating tactic, but what are we trying to negotiate? Whatever Trump thinks is unfair. None of our allies have clarity. Americans don't have clarity. And if the tariffs are for negotiating leverage, then they won't end up raising any revenue when he removes them, but the Republican plan is to pay for extending trillions of dollars in tax cuts by raising revenue with tariffs. So Republicans want to pass big tax cuts, which mostly benefit the wealthy, pay for a small portion of those tax cuts by gutting health care and food support for low-income people who use Medicaid and SNAP, and then balloon our already $36 trillion deficit because the supposed tariffs won't actually be in place for enough time to raise any revenue. Or if the tariffs are permanent, then all Americans are forced to pay higher prices on goods, and the retaliation against our businesses and farmers becomes even more devastating. These are concerns that should be bipartisan and could be worked through if we had a deliberative process that involved Congress. And Ms. Clausen, do you agree that the Constitution gives Congress, not the executive branch, the power to regulate foreign commerce and impose taxes and tariffs?
Yes.
Thank you. So Washington State's economy is extremely reliant on trade and selling our products to customers around the world. So I want to see the United States get back in negotiating real trade agreements that go through Congress. But at the same time, I'm concerned about giving even more power to a president at a time when he is abusing the current limited authorities that Congress has given him. And I also wonder what the point of entering into trade agreements is, like we did with bipartisan USMCA, if Trump can blow up the deal by imposing sweeping tariffs on Canada and Mexico.